Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, it's a special Tuesday recording, which means it's a short week for USC. The Trojans are taking on Rutgers in the Coliseum on Friday.
This week for me needs to be all about playing for pride, right? I want to see a football team that takes a lot of pride in getting to wear the Cardinal and gold, that takes pride in getting the privilege to play for USC football, because it is a privilege. And you have to understand that, you know, when you play Trojan football, and I fully bought into this when I played here, you play for something that's so much bigger than yourself, right? You play for all the players that came before you that set the bar so high. You play for the Trojan family, right? You're playing for the tradition that is USC football. And when you lose 3 games like this, especially in a row, it has to become personal. I want to see a football team this week that is laser focused, that's locked in, put the blinders on, right? Get off social media, turn off the TV, block out all the comments, and get to work. That's the most important thing this week. I don't want to see one player walking off Howard Jones Field as soon as practice ends, right? You need to stay out there and get those extra reps in. Do whatever you need to do that's necessary for you to go out there and dominate on Friday. Get a couple extra throws in. Get a couple extra catches in. Get a couple extra pass rush technique in. Whatever you need to do to feel over-prepared for this football game, do it and then some, right? Get in the film room. Watch an extra hour of film. Watch an extra 2 hours of film. If I'm Miller, if I'm some of these skill players, grab your teammates, right? Go in there and watch film outside of, you know, the time you spend with the coaches, outside of meetings. Make sure you're doing everything necessary to be ready for this football game. And most importantly, you have to go out there on Friday and execute, right? Take it one play at a time. Do your job. Trust the guy around you. The most important thing this week, and the only thing that matters, is winning this football game. Everything else is irrelevant.
I mean, it is interesting just looking at the schedule. We came off of USC's longest road trip of the year, and they're going into a short week. And I did ask Coach Riley about that on Monday, and he said, you know, this is probably the best time for it. It's one of those things where you want to get that bad taste out of your mouth. You want to play as soon as you can. So in some ways, I guess, if we want to look glass half full, it's a good thing for USC that they get to kind of right the ship quickly this week.
Yeah, and that is true, and that's a good point, but you have to still go out and win this football game, right? Or else that doesn't matter. To get the bad taste out of your mouth, the only way to do that is winning. The only way to get over a loss is winning the next football game. Is it a good thing that you can't sit around and think about it? Right now, the 24-hour rule that I've talked about is now a 12-hour rule. You basically got the flight back, and now you're already in preparation for this football game. Yes, that can be a positive, but you have to take that step forward, right? In the last 3 weeks for this football team, outside of the Penn State game, there were a lot of positives in that game, and I thought we played well for the majority of that football game. But the Minnesota game and the Maryland game, I felt like this team, you know, took a step forward and then 2 steps back in those games. And it's frustrating. You have to be able this week against Rutgers, on paper, a team that we should beat, right? And I hate saying a lesser opponent, because in reality, we are 3-4. And it's tough to say that when we're not producing on game day and we're not winning these games, to say these teams are lesser opponents. But we do have better athletes, right? We do have better players, in my opinion, when you watch the film, than some of these teams that we're losing to. We just have to find a way to get the job done. And I'm hoping that this is the week to do that. Like I said, a short week, block everything out. But the most important thing is got to go out there and win this football game and not take any more steps backwards.
Alrighty, well, before we dive into it, just a couple reminders. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you ever want to get your voice heard, be sure to look out for a tweet or a question box, either on Twitter or Instagram. Our socials are VictoryPodUSC. You can also send us a text. If you are an audio listener, it is in the description of whatever podcasting app you use. It says send us a text, and it will pop open your messaging app, and you can text us that way. Make sure to include your name, please. We only get where you're from. So if you hear me say like a listener from Anaheim, that's why. So if you don't hear your name, that's why. But again, Cody, people were just sending us texts because they were, you know, obviously wanted some therapy after Saturday's game. So thank you to everyone who did that. And speaking of Saturday's game, we weren't able to do a recap episode. That is completely my fault. Cody did all the prep and everything, and I just dropped the ball. Okay, not on purpose, I will say. Somehow in the way trip, gluten entered my system, and I'm gluten-free, if you don't know, and I was just out for the count. I had such a bad migraine that I closed my eyes and was like, you know what? I'll gear up for the pod, and slept through our recording time.
AKA Keely bailed and didn't want to see me on Sunday and was tired from the trip and
no
avoided.
No, are you
no,
kidding?
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, no.
No, we were ready to go. We talked that morning too about, hey, let's do this time.
Yeah.
And then you were like, I am not feeling good, and you know that it can't.
You were like,
that.
Is everything okay?
Well, I texted you because I didn't hear from you for a while.
And I don't do that, so it was a little weird. But yeah, so the gluten was the culprit. So apologies for that, but we are getting back on track. And because we're doing a Tuesday episode, I was like,
yeah, good point.
Normally we could do like a Monday episode, but there's just so much turnaround this week that I was like, you know what? Let's just hit it back on Tuesday. So thank you for your patience on that.
And we did get some questions too, and we will address some of that at the end of the show, or when we get to the question portion about that game and how to build off of that. And I know people are probably tired of hearing about it, and it was a tough loss, but there are some things I think that we need to address in the question portion that will lead into this game and stuff we can build off of.
Yeah, we have some crossover with the questions that we got this week, so we'll address it in some form or fashion. So just stay tuned for the question portion. But with that being said, Cody, it is Rutgers week. I know you like to start with the coaching staff, so take it away.
Yeah, their head coach is Greg Schiano. This is his 5th season currently at Rutgers as their head coach, but this is his 16th season overall at Rutgers. He was their head coach previously from 2001 to 2011. He then took the head coaching job for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from 2012 to 2013 and was also the defensive coordinator at Ohio State from 2016 to 2018 before returning back to Rutgers. He has an overall head coaching record of 91 wins and 98 losses, all of which are at Rutgers at the college level. That is the only place that he's been a head coach at. This year, he has the Scarlet Knights off to a 4-3 start overall, and they're 1-3 in Big Ten play. Their wins are against Howard, Akron, Virginia Tech, and the Washington Huskies, and then their losses are against Nebraska, Wisconsin, and then last week they lost to UCLA 35-32. It's interesting though, because this is a good football team. Their Nebraska loss was only by 7, and their UCLA loss was only by 3, and they had a chance there at the end to win that game. The Wisconsin game, though, was where they got exposed a little bit. They lost that game 42-7. Now, Schiano is a very experienced coach. He's been coaching since 1988, so another coach that's been coaching since before we were born.
Yeah.
He has spent time at both the college and the NFL level throughout his career. He has been a part of 4 conference championship winning teams, and he has coached in multiple New Year's Six bowl games. He also knows how to develop players. He has coached 18 All-Americans at Rutgers and multiple NFL draft picks. He led the Scarlet Knights to a 7-6 record a year ago, the school's first winning record since 2014. Schiano looks to build off of that this season and keep things rolling.
Now, I know this is not related to Schiano, so apologies, but I just think it's fascinating now being in the Big Ten. If you look at kickoff time, it's 11 p.m. kickoff time for a team on the East Coast.
Yeah.
How much does that affect their body clock?
I want to know who's in charge of that scheduling, too. I mean, I would understand if it was a Big Ten matchup between us and Washington or us and Oregon or UCLA.
Yeah.
Have an 8 p.m. kick, but you're coming from New Jersey, which is basically as far east as you can get, and now their fans are going to have to watch kickoff at 11 p.m., and the players, like you said, are playing at 11 p.m. That's got to be tough, right? And we complain about going to the East Coast and having early kickoffs to where we're, behind in sleep schedule. Everything's kind of sped up. It's the opposite for them, especially with the night game. So that's a great point. It's going to be tough. I mean, I would love to see, what their schedule looks like, their travel schedule, what it's going to be like in the hotel room, their walkthrough time, the meal time, all of that, because you're not used to. I guarantee you they haven't practiced one time this year at 11 p.m. Or they haven't had film. I mean, maybe fall camp, your film room goes a little bit longer
but that's so
after
different.
practice, but to play, and I haven't heard anything in reading about them this week. I don't think they're practicing any different this week or practicing that late.
Yeah.
I mean, your fans are gonna have to try to step. It's gonna be 1 a.m., 2 a.m. by halftime.
Goodness.
Of this game. They may not even get home. They're not gonna get home until the next day because they're gonna lose 3 hours again flying back.
That's so rough.
If they leave right after. It's crazy. But that's, like I said, that scheduling is. We thought we got away from it with the Pac-12, but here we are again. You know how I feel about that. I'm not gonna complain. I'm just gonna go right into offensive coordinator.
Go for it.
Their OC is Kirk Shiraka. This is his 2nd season as Rutgers offensive coordinator, but his 5th season overall at Rutgers. Another guy who has been around the program before. This is his 2nd tenure with the school. He coached with Schiano before at Rutgers from 2008 to 2010, where he spent time as a wide receivers coach, a quarterback coach, and even a co-offensive coordinator. Another coach with a ton of experience, been coaching since 1990. So again, has been coaching longer than we've been born.
Yep.
Most recently, Shiraka was the offensive coordinator at Minnesota from 2017 to 2019. Then he was the OC at Penn State in 2020. Then he went back to Minnesota as their OC for a year in 2022 before again coming to Rutgers. In his first year back a season ago, Rutgers was the most improved team in the Big Ten in total offense. They also ranked 5th in rushing offense in the Big Ten. This year, they're 4th in rushing offense in the Big Ten and have one of, if not the best running backs in all of the Big Ten, in my opinion. Now, the stats back that up, but also when you watch the film, he's a very good player. We'll get into that when we talk about key players on offense. He does know how to produce talent in the pass game as well, though, although they have been a dominant running football team. He was the offensive coordinator at Delaware when they won a national championship, and he was responsible for the development of 18th overall pick in the 2008 NFL Draft and Super Bowl winning quarterback. I'm testing you. Do you know?
And you didn't even put it in the notes.
Didn't put it, so I could ask you.
Trickeration.
Do you know? He was 18th overall pick. Fans, you can guess at home. 2008.
I was in 8th grade.
Won a Super Bowl.
Give me a break.
I'll give you another hint. He won a Super Bowl for the Ravens, and he played quarterback at Delaware.
Flacco?
Yeah, there you go, Joe Flacco. He played for Kirk Shiraka. It was cool to see that when you look at the history of some of these coaches, some of the
Yeah.
players they coach, another guy,
That's so cool.
he was the offensive coordinator for Western Michigan when wide receiver Corey Davis was a consensus All-American, and then he went 5th overall in the draft. So although they are very run-heavy at Rutgers the last couple of years, and this year it is true, and I'll show you the numbers and how that backs that up.
Yeah.
He does know how to develop quarterbacks and produce a solid passing game. This is an experienced offensive coordinator that has a ton of success at the college level. Now, when you go to the defensive coordinator, his name is Joe Harasimiak. This is his 3rd season as Rutgers defensive coordinator. Unlike Shiraka and Shiano, this is his first time with Rutgers football. He has been coaching since 2008. So,
Okay.
hey, coach,
I was
not
born,
as much experience. We were
as
born.
I said.
So not as much experience as his fellow coaches, but still coached a lot of football. He has even had some head coaching experience. He was a head coach at the University of Maine from 2016 to 2018. He then went on to Minnesota from 2018 to 2021, where he crossed paths with Shiraka. He coached defensive backs for the Golden Gophers and also spent 2 seasons as their co-defensive coordinator before coming to Rutgers in 2022. Last year, he produced the 16th ranked total defense in the entire country, only allowing 313 yards per game. They also ranked 32nd in scoring defense, and they were 10th in total pass defense in all of college football. Now, they have taken a step back so far this year in each of those categories, but this is still a coach that knows how to produce a good defense and will have this defense ready to go on Friday night.
Now, you said that their offensive stats show that they like to run the ball. What are you seeing stats-wise from their offense?
Yeah, I'm going to start with scoring offense, which is 26 points per game, which is 79th in college football. Total offense, they have 381 yards per game, which is 77th in college football. Passing offense is 191 yards per game, which is 104th in college football. Rushing offense, where they are excelling right now, is 190 yards per game, which is 37th in college football. Then on third down, they've struggled a little bit. They only have a 39% conversion rate, which is 70th in college football. And then fourth down, they only have a 28% conversion rate, which is 129th in all of college football.
Now, key players, who are you looking at?
Yeah, I'm going to start with quarterback Athan Kaliakmanis, 6'3", 215-pound senior, a transfer from Minnesota. So he came over with Shiraka a year ago. 104 for 195, 53% completion percentage, 1,337 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. He also has 44 carries for 126 yards and 1 touchdown. He is very involved in the run game, but my first red dot player of the week and who they want to get the football to, not only in the ground game, but their entire offense, is running back Kyle Manungai, 5'9", 210-pound senior, 154 carries, 845 yards, 5.5 average, and he already has 10 touchdowns on the season. Second in the Big Ten and 10th nationally in both yards and touchdowns. He's first in the Big Ten and second in all of college football in carries with 154. They love getting him the football. Their entire offense really runs through Manungai, and he hasn't had a game this year where he's had less than 19 carries. And I think 3 of the 7 are above 20 carries in a game. So they love to get him the football early and often. Now, when you go to their passing offense, their wide receiver that they like to get the football to is Demir Miller, 5'11", 185-pound senior, 26 receptions, 349 yards, and 1 touchdown. Their other wide receiver is Ian Strong, 6'3", 210-pound sophomore, 16 receptions, 267 yards, 1 touchdown. And then their last wide receiver that they get involved in this offense is wide receiver KJ Duff, 6'6", 220-pound freshman, 10 receptions, 178 yards. He is coming off of his biggest performance a week ago against UCLA. He had 3 catches for 82 yards, a very talented freshman.
Now, when you look at Kaliakmanis' stats, I know it's not exactly a dual threat, but how would you list him with his running ability?
Yeah, I wouldn't quite list him as a dual threat quarterback, right? He's not in the Alex Orji category. Now, I know you may look at it and say 44 carries is a lot. Now, some of those are sacks. Some of those are quarterback sneaks, right? Some of those are him, just a play breaking down, him taking off and running for a yard or two and picking up a little gain. The 126 yards is kind of what makes me hesitant to put him in that category, right? Only has 1 touchdown on the ground as well, and that is a tush push, which they do have this week, so we've got to be ready for that. But overall, they will run some quarterback design runs. It's kind of similar to Billy Edwards a week ago, right? Be ready for some of those draw plays. Be ready for him to pull it on the zone reads. We have to have someone ready that's accountable for him when he does pull the football and take off and run. And the other asset the other aspect of it is him taking off and hurting you with his legs on third down when the play breaks down. So again, not quite a dual threat, but he can hurt you with his legs if we're not ready for it.
On the whole, how would you describe what this offense does? Yeah,
this is a spread offense that really prioritizes the run game first, right? And it's interesting when you look at the numbers, you think they would be a pro style under center, Iowa type team that's going to run that power run game over and over, bring in double tight ends. They are a spread offense, right? Their identity is they're going to get in spread. They're going to get in 3 wide, 4 wide. They just love to run the football off of that. And to back that up, they have 271 rush attempts this year to only 195 pass attempts. So that's 60-40 run to pass. And this has been consistent under Shiraka. Last year, they ran it 517 times, and they only threw it 294 times.
Wow.
I will say this, though, the other element is be ready for the RPOs. Although they do run the football a lot, they like to use a lot of those RPOs. And when they do the RPOs, you'll get your quick hitches, your slants, but they do a good job of letting Kaliak Manis pull it. And similar to what we do, let a Lake McCree tight end type, run in the flat, or a Zachariah Branch run in the flat. And then sometimes they'll pull it, pump the RPO like Caleb did a couple of years ago, then take off and run. So although they are very run heavy, there's different ways they do it, and they do a good job of mixing it up. Instead of just giving the ball to Monungai over and over, they'll add some other stuff into it. But yeah, Monungai, when they run the football, is the guy we have to look for.
Well, in that sense, what makes him so effective as a runner?
Yeah, he is a very good back. And I only had one red dot player on offense this week. It was him. I mean, he really is their entire offense. I don't want to take away from Kaliak Manis. I don't want to take away from some of these receivers. They have, a 6'3" receiver. They have a 6'6" receiver that can hurt you down the field. They will throw the football, but their entire identity is through Monungai, right? And when you watch the film, it's just consistently getting him the football. There is a reason that he already has 154 carries this year because of how good he is with the ball in his hand. He's a bigger back that is tough to bring down, but he also has a very good burst of speed, right? The way he runs, and I wrote down he's a bulldozer with speed, which is the best way to describe his running ability. I mean, he will run over you. He'll run through you. He's not quite a hop step or a jump step, sidestep type player. He likes to get more north and south than east and west. He's not, Woody Marks does a good job of being a balanced back, but you see Woody, he'll sidestep, he'll read his blocks a little bit, go around. Yeah. Monungai is a downhill runner, but when he does get some open field, he can break away. He can take off and run. I mean, he's only 5'9", but he's 210 pounds. He is a physical back. We cannot this week try to arm tackle him. You have to get in front of him. You have to wrap up. You have to drive your legs. Go watch the tape. He is and I know the bulldozer with speed might sound a little funny, but that's the best way. It's literally the easiest way for me to describe him without showing you film. Like he is bouncing. His yards after contact is unbelievable. He's been so good. I mean, there's runs against UCLA where he breaks 3 or 4 tackles and finishes in the end zone.
Wow.
We have been better this year, but we've struggled at times, with missing some of this tackle or missing some tackles. So this is a huge week for that. Talking about a player that can dictate the outcome of a game. Monungai is that. That's a player this week that we have to key on, and we can't allow him to go out there and dominate on Friday and control the pace of this football game.
Now, I know you said that the offense really goes through Monungai, but when Kaliak Manis does want to throw the ball, what do you see from him?
Yeah, Kaliak Manis does have a decent arm when they do throw it. And I know he isn't the most accurate, and he struggled this year at times, but he does do a good job of making some big-time throws. He's very good at throwing the comeback throw to the outside, especially to his right side. And it's tough to really pinpoint like a description on him as a quarterback because you watch some throws where it jumps off the tape, where it's like, hey, he's making big-time NFL-level throws. He's pushing the ball down the field. He's making, far hash to opposite sideline 15-yard comeback throws. He just lacks consistency. And I think that's for their offense to really take that next step and not just be a run-heavy offense. He's got to be a little bit more accurate, especially pushing the ball down the field. Like I said, he loves throwing the comeback, the outbreakers to the right side. He threw it over and over on that same route against UCLA. If you play man-to-man, he's very good at picking and sticking. He does a good job of going through progression. Where he starts struggling and where I think his accuracy takes a big hit is when you get pressure on him, and that's something that we've struggled with a little bit. Again, we had 2 sacks last week, but none of them from our defensive line. We've got to be able to get home with a 4-man rush this week, especially against Kaliak Manis, because when you get home and you get a rush, you force some of those missed throws, and then you can create takeaways off of that and get some turnovers. But overall, yes, they're going to be a heavy run game. Yes, they're going to get the ball to Monungai, but who knows? We played Minnesota, who we thought was going to be a heavy pass team, and then they come out and run the football, right? We played Penn State, who I thought was going to run it all over the field with their 2 very good backs, and they let Aller go out and throw it 50 times or 40 times. So we've got to be ready for that. Like I said, Kaliak Manis isn't the best quarterback in the Big Ten. He's not the most accurate, but there are flashes of how good he can be, and if we're struggling in coverage like we have the last couple of weeks or in some of these losses, he'll take advantage of that, and it could be a long night.
Already, well, any other thoughts on Rutgers' offense?
No, it's probably our quickest preview on an offense that we've done. Their offensive line's decent. They've given up some sacks this year, but they do a good job in the run game. They love to get vertical. They love to get up to the second level. They do a good job there, but it's short because their offense is literally Kyle Monungai. They love getting him the football. They have a couple other backs on this roster, but none that I mentioned because I think the next back, one of them's hurt, but the next closest back is less than 100 carries. And what Monungai has, he's going to play the entire game if he's healthy, but that's their entire offense, right? They're going to throw it a little bit with Kaliak Manis, so let him run. Not quite a dual threat. They have some good receivers on the outside. We've got to be ready for some of those mismatches. Like I said, Strong is 6'3". Duff, their freshman who's playing well, is 6'6". so they can take some advantages down in the red zone. But overall, this is an offense, 60-40 run. They want to get the ball to Kyle Monangai. Like I said, he's second in the entire country with 154 carries, so we have to be ready for him on Friday night.
Alrighty, well, let's look at the defense. Before we do, just want to give a thanks to Audi. What you expect from an SUV is a range of sizes to fit your lifestyle. Expectations matter, but exceeding them matters more. The Audi family of SUVs, progress you can feel. And Trojan fans, celebrate every USC win and enjoy the sweet taste of victory with a free donut at Ralph's the day after the win. Download your digital coupon from the Ralph's app to score your free donut at any Los Angeles area Ralph's store. Alrighty, Cody, defensive stats, what are we looking at?
Yeah, like I said, they have taken a step back statistically from a year ago on defense. Scoring defense right now, they're giving up 22 points per game, which is 52nd in college football. Total defense, giving up 385 yards per game, which is 90th in the country. Passing defense, giving up 215 yards per game, which is 66th. They've struggled in their rushing defense, giving up 170 yards per game on the ground, which is 100th in college football. And then third down defense, they've struggled as well, giving up a 41% conversion rate, which is 91st in the country.
Okay, now when it comes to their key players, I did take a little peek. It seems like there's more red dot guys than on offense.
Yeah, I got a couple more on defense than I do on offense for Rutgers. The first one is linebacker Daryl Jabomi, 6'2", 240-pound junior, 67 tackles on the year, which is a team high and third in the Big Ten right now. He has 1 sack, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 pass defense. In my opinion, their best player on this defense, a leader and a captain of this defense. Now, the next player is our safety, Desmond Igbignason, 6'2", 215-pound senior, has 42 tackles, 2 pass defense. Another safety to look out for is Flip Dixon, 6'2", 210-pound senior, 33 tackles, 1 interception, 1 pass defense. My next red dot player is our other safety, Shaquan Loyal, 6 foot, 205-pound senior, 33 tackles, 2 interceptions, 4 pass defense. A very good player when it comes to getting his hand on the football. They'll put him at safety. They'll put him at nickel. They'll move him all over the field. We just got to know where he's at all times. Another good player for this defense is linebacker Moses Walker, 6'2", 230-pound junior. And then the next red dot player I have is their defensive lineman, Keontae Hamilton, 6'4", 305-pound senior. Another big challenge this week for Jonah Monheim in the middle of this defense. 26 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery. A couple other players in their secondary. The first one is cornerback Bo Masco, 5'11", 185-pound sophomore. He has 24 tackles and 1 fumble recovery. The next corner is Eric Rogers, 6'2", 190-pound senior, 23 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception, 1 touchdown off of that, and 2 pass defense. Nice. Borderline red dot player, probably their better cover corner on this football team, or their best cover corner on this football team. And then another cornerback to look out for is Robert Longerbeam, 5'11", 180-pound senior, 18 tackles, 1 interception. And then another guy up front for them is defensive lineman Malcolm Ray, 6'2", 290-pound senior, 14 tackles, 1 sack, and 1 fumble recovery. Now, I've listed a good amount of players here, but they are missing a lot of guys, and a big reason for that, this defense has had a lot of key players out with injuries this year, but they've had some younger guys that had to step up. Now,
I just want to give you just a props here, because this is the name Olympics this episode. Killing the game. I love it.
Every episode is – it's tough, too, when it's on the defensive side of the ball, because on offense, when you're a quarterback, right, you look at Kaliak Manis. I was trying to pre-pronounce it before I got to watching the film or watching some of the TV copies. Then you look at Monangai, some of these other guys. It's easier because they get the football a lot, right? They touch the ball. Their name's called a lot more. When you get on defense, there's not a lot of times that they're calling, a safety every play,
sure,
or the interior nose tackle, trying to figure out what their name is. But again, if I do miss some of them, I apologize. If anyone from Rutgers or their family ever watches, it's never intentional.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's tough. Emily did a good job helping me out on some of these names behind the scenes as well. So we do want to give our respect to the names. But yeah, it's tough sometimes, especially when you have so many to talk about.
For sure. Now, looking at this defense, though, what do you see from them as a whole?
Yeah, this is a defense that likes to mix up their fronts, right? They're primarily a 3-down front football team. And what you're going to see is on base downs especially, now they will do it on nickel as well, but you're going to see 3-down linemen with their hand on the ground and then 1 stand-up rush player or defensive end. And then in nickel downs, they're going to remove, or nickel personnel, they're going to remove their other rush edge or their outside linebacker. Sometimes it's a nickel player. Sometimes they'll put their 6'5", 250-pound defensive end out there in coverage as well when you're playing nickel. So you've got to be ready for different personnel groupings, whether you're in base, whether you're in nickel, obviously, or whether you're in 11 personnel. We're going to spend the majority of the game in 11 personnel or 3 wide, right? We might see some 2 tight ends, especially with Lakeback, but I would expect for them to show us a mixture of both on the defensive side of the ball. They love to mix up their pressure. They do a great job of bringing some unique pressure looks. There's a game, or there's a play against UCLA down in the red zone where they bring a free safety from the right side of the field and then a Mike linebacker from the left side, which is a unique cover or a unique pressure. You don't see that a whole lot.
Yeah.
Well, it starts to be the Sam. I don't have the film, so I don't want to get too confusing. Starts to be the Sam linebacker, but he sees the running back go out, so he peels and then the Mike replaces on a blitz. So it's tough. It's some unique looks, but you have a Mike coming from this way, free safety from that way. Just have to be great in communication because they do a good job of mixing up some of these looks and some of these different pressures. UCLA did hurt them on that play, ended up throwing a touchdown. So I don't know how much we'll see it, but and again, this was a week ago, so I don't know if I expect to see that same pressure,
Sure.
but obviously they're going to have some stuff ready to go for us this week. This is a defense that loves to fly around all over the field. The best way that I could describe it in my notes was controlled chaos. They're going to do a lot of post-snap movement, not a ton of pre-snap movement that we've seen before, like Penn State show you, a bunch of different crazy looks and then get out of it. Third down, though, they will get some funky looks. We'll get to that in a second. We'll talk about their third down package, but they do a good job of being controlled pre-snap, showing you a look, and then when the ball snapped, you're going to see so many guys fly around. They're going to have, an overload look where all three guys come to one side, and then they loop another player all the way back around. Like I said, it's going to look like it's picket fence cover 4 down in the goal line. What I mean is everyone's standing on the line of scrimmage, and on that play, they bring a free safety and a Mike, right? It's just they do so much post-snap, but they're always in position to make some of these plays. They do give up some home run plays out of it because it's so much, but you can tell they're well coached, and they do a good job of understanding what player is supposed to come. They're understanding with different looks how they communicate and make sure that their responsibilities are going to change. Like I said, it's high-level stuff to know that a Sam linebacker is pressuring, but if a running back goes out, you've got to on the fly. Sam has to peel with. Now Mike replaces and blitzes. So they do a good job of that. But with controlled chaos, there are some opportunities with some holes in this defense. They do they struggle with covering the running back on some of these pressures that they bring. So this is a big game for Woody Marks as well. But yeah, it's a very good defense. They mix up a lot of stuff. Not as crazy as we've seen in the past, but still, you've got to be ready and be great in communication this week because when you let your guard down, they can't hurt you with some of these pressure looks.
Not as crazy, but still funky in third down?
Yes, funky in third down, and we'll get into that since I just previewed it. We have to be ready for third down, right? I don't want to put it quite in the Wink Martindale and the Denton Lynn category, but they have some very exotic looks. They do overload. I didn't see a ton of double A gap against Wisconsin or against UCLA, but I'm sure they have it, right? But they do a good job of going 3 down, walking up multiple different players. Another week of communication nightmare, right? Or identification nightmare. Is this the Mike linebacker? Is that the safety? They have defensive linemen wearing single-digit numbers. They have linebackers in the 20s. It's just, that's college football, right? So it's tough.
Yeah.
So no, this guy's the Mike, that's the Will, that's the 3-tech. So they do mix up some of their looks, and it can be confusing. A huge week, like I said, for Jonah and Miller to be on the same page. I love that we're back home, though, in the Coliseum.
Yeah.
The crowd noise isn't going to be an issue when we have the football. Hopefully it's an issue for them when they're on offense. Now, it's an 8 p.m. kick, and on Friday night, Dodgers are in the World Series, so I don't know how loud it's going to be. Go Dodgers, by the way. Sorry, Keely, Angels fan. But but the good thing for that is it's not going to be loud when we're on offense. And then some of the other stuff I saw on film, just be ready for the loopers like I talked about. They'll do a thing where they overload one side. They'll bring 3 or 4 players to the right. But as soon as you think, okay, I've got to slide everybody to the right, they'll loop a linebacker or a defensive end all the way back around to the right. They got a couple free rushes. They got a big hit on Garbers, UCLA quarterback, off of that because they didn't pass it off. That's another thing in my notes. We have to be great with post-snap communication up front, right? When you get twist games like that between a guard tackle, between a center guard, between guard tackle other side, if someone's leaving, someone's coming back, right? You've got to know that if you have a defensive tackle looping around or going to the right, someone's going to replace him. So you have to be great offense line of go, 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 or pass, 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 whatever they say, and then know that someone's looping around, right? And they do a great job in communication with that. But overall, I know they've struggled a little bit with third down defense, but if we are not prepared this week or ready for the different looks and different pressures are going to show, especially with safeties, with corners, all that different stuff, they can hurt us, and it could be tough for us on third down.
Now, something that, and you might not have the answer to this, but something that's interesting to me is the majority of their stats that you listed kind of puts them in the bottom third of college football, but their scoring defense or points allowed is 52nd in college football. How do you reconcile the two?
I mean, they were so good, too, a year ago. That's what's confusing. When you watch the film, and again, I watched a couple clips from a year ago, but it's tough, when you're playing on a short week to go back and.
No, I don't expect you to do that.
I mean, which I can't help though, because last night I didn't watch the entire Wisconsin game, and it was eating me alive. So at 1:30 in the morning, I literally got on my phone and opened my notes on my phone. And I'm literally right here.
Cody.
Watch the entire Wisconsin. I have to over prepare. It's the way I'm wired.
Perfectionist,
but
yes.
It's interesting because yes, they've lost some key players from a year ago, but they were so good last season. Like I said, 10th in pass defense. They were 32nd in scoring defense, right? They were, I think, 15th or top 15th, and I said earlier on, in total defense, only giving up 315 yards. They've taken a big step back in all these categories. But like you said, it's when you see numbers like that, that alludes to a bend, don't break type of defense, right?
Yeah.
They're going to give up big plays, which they do. UCLA had back-to-back-to-back big plays. They had 3 touchdown passes to their running backs. Like I mentioned, a big game for Woody Marks. Some of those were because, although it's controlled chaos, when you bring that much pressure and you do that much post-snap movement, you're going to be susceptible to giving up communication busts. You're going to be susceptible to giving up some holes in your defense, especially when you play man-to-man, trying to disguise so much. They had a time where they're playing man, and there's a corner that's going to replace the blitzing Sam linebacker to go cover the tight end. It was an easy 20-yard gain because they just popped it to him right away, and now you're out of play. So they do a good job of being in the right spot, but when you try to confuse an offense that much, obviously we can take advantage of that. But yeah, like I said, being 52nd and scoring defense, like 22 points per game, that's good defense in my opinion, especially in the Big Ten. I'll take that. That's not terrible, but like I said, rushing defense 100th, total defense 90th, third down defense 91st. It just alludes to a bend don't break style defense, which they are, but they're not afraid to play some man-to-man, and they'll give you some shots on the outside.
Well, any other thoughts on Rutgers' defense, Cody?
Yeah, I'm talking about their back end real quick. They do a good job of mixing up coverage, but they are not afraid to play man-to-man. I was surprised with how much man-to-man they played against UCLA. A big reason for that is because, like I said, post-snap, they like to bring some of these funky different pressures, right? That, like I said, the free safety Mike, the Sam peeling, the Mike replacing, showing overload, loop around, all those different things. The best way to bring extra pressure is just to trust your guys to play man-to-man on the outside. Will they do it against us this week? That's the biggest question I have. I even put in my notes, would not be surprised if they played a good amount of man against us, but if Miller starts dicing them up a little bit, right? If we start hitting some of those deep shots, which I want to see us take some of those, those slot fades that we left short to Deuce Robinson last week. Some of those double moves. Charles Ross on the outside got an opportunity, made a great move on a defender and got behind the defense. Would love to see Miller put it out there. Kyron Hudson on that third down, late in the game, one of those got-to-have-it situations. They go all out, cover 0. He beats the defenders by 2 steps. If they're going to play man like that, like Maryland did a week ago, like they showed a good amount this year, especially against UCLA last week, and they hurt them with it, especially with their running back, having man-to-man on a safety or having man-to-man on a linebacker. And I think Woody Marks is a better athlete than some of the UCLA running backs. But if they play man-to-man this week, we have to make them pay. We cannot just settle for a back shoulder every single time. We can't leave some of those deep balls, short and underthrow them when we have a step. You get a 15-yarder because it's underthrown, and okay, great, we'll take 15. But those 15s can turn into 40, can turn into points, right? That's why last week, in my opinion, we should have been up 35-7 or at least 28-7 at halftime. How many times was Deuce Robinson behind the defense or Kyron Hudson, and like I said, I don't want to put it all on Miller. There has been times this year where guys are getting, separation, they're just dropping it, and that hurts confidence. I know there's a lot of times that Miller's taking some hits, but for me this week, if they come out and play man-to-man, Miller needs to be able to push the football down the field, throw it over the top. I don't want to see one back shoulder this week. I mean, if it's there, I get it. And if it's just a clear cut, we're not winning over the top, they're being physical, I'm fine with the back shoulder. But if we have a step or even 50-50 and it's side by side, Mekhi Lemon, any of these guys, especially Zachariah Branch, the guys that aren't as big, that aren't going to go up and make those back shoulder plays, let it rip. I want to see Miller overthrow someone this week. I'm okay with that. I know he did against Minnesota on the post route. Not a ton of those, right? I'd like to see Miller put some air under it, let us go get it, and that's if they play man-to-man. Now, they do play some zone. I know I kind of got off sidetrack there a little bit, but if a team, and I go back to my quarterback days, if a team, and T. Martin always said this as our wide receiver coach, if a team's going to play man-to-man against you, that is a disrespect thing. That is a slap in the face saying, we're not worried about us losing one-on-ones all over the field if they play man-to-man majority of the game. Now, teams are going to mix that up, but if they come out like they did against UCLA and play majority man, that's disrespectful in my opinion. We've got to go out there and win those one-on-one opportunities. Have to be ready for droppers when they do go zone. Like I said, they will show a lot of pressure situations. They will show different looks up front. They will drop out some of their defensive ends like Penn State did, right? That almost hurt us a couple times with Abdul Carter. Miller not seeing those guys dropping underneath. So just be ready for that. And one final thing I will say is we have to run the football this week and consistently run the football, right? Their rush defense right now, they're giving up 170 yards per game, which is 100th in college football. Go watch the Wisconsin tape. They are similar to our offense, like we previewed against them. A ton of guard tackle pulling, a ton of slide blocking with the tight end. They were gashing Rutgers in the run game over and over. Another thing, a big week for Miller, and he did it in the Wisconsin game. He needs to do it again. Be ready to pull it. They're going to fully commit to some of those plays. We saw against Maryland a week ago, there were times where Woody Mark gets the football, they're bringing pressure, and he's tackling the backfield when it feels like, Miller, just pull it. Pull it and get a couple yards. Even if you pull it and it's not a loss and you get 1 or 2 yards, that's fine. We'll take a positive play. But he has to have a huge point of emphasis this week to be ready to pull the football because they will sell out. When you go guard, tackle, pull, they will replace. They will crash downhill and leave the edge open. And if they don't respect Miller and Miller doesn't start pulling it, they're going to be able to get to Woody in the backfield. Now, if he starts pulling it a little bit and you force that backside defensive end to hesitate, That's what Wisconsin did.
Yeah.
Now you have those big plays in the run game. So overall, like I said, a good defense that can come out and play well. They've taken a step backwards this year, in my opinion, but still a good defensive coordinator and a good group of players that can come out and hurt you on Friday if you don't have a great, plan in place on offense.
Well, let's look at the game as a whole, Cody. It's time for the USC Mann School Pharmacy prescription to win, the keys to the game for USC against Rutgers on Friday. First up, stop the run.
Yeah, this is an offense that loves to run the football, and in my opinion, they have one of the best running backs in the country in Kyle Monungai. He leads the Big Ten and is second in college football with 154 carries already this season, and he is very dangerous with the ball in his hand. USC's front seven needs to be dominant and control the line of scrimmage for all 4 quarters and force Rutgers to have to throw the football on Friday night.
Now, the second key is kind of the inverse for USC's offense, run the football.
Yeah, I would love for this offense to lean heavy on the run game this week and get both Woody Marks and Quentin Joyner going early and often. This USC offense is truly at its best when they have a balanced attack and can create some explosive plays both through the air and on the ground. Rutgers is 100th in the country in run defense right now, and I would love for USC to make it a point of emphasis to establish the run game on Friday and control the trenches on offense.
And the final key to the game is the most important, get back on track.
Yeah, it's time for us to get back into the win column this week and get things back on track. I want to see a team that is laser focused on Friday, that takes a lot of pride in wearing the Cardinal and gold, and that understands when you play for USC football, you're playing for something that's far bigger than yourself. We're back home in the Coliseum in front of the Trojan family. Want to know this week, that's the only thing that matters.
Alrighty, Cody, let's jump into questions. Before we do, just want to give a thanks to Audi. Focus matters. Listen closely. The Audi Q8 e-tron's cabin is serenely quiet, so you can focus on other things, like having tomorrow's technology today. The new fully electric Audi Q8 e-tron, how we get there matters. And at Ralph's, everyone wins when it comes to saving big, because when you order online through the Ralph's app, you get the same great prices, deals, and rewards on pickup or delivery that you do in store. So no matter how you shop, you always save big at Ralph's. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. Cody Kessler.
Fight on.
Boom. It's always so, it's so...
That one, I tried, every time I do the 2 hands, now I'm doing the one. Anyways, I practiced that. Hopefully it didn't look weird. I'm ready for questions.
Great conversation, Cody. We got a question from Joe, who said, sometimes it feels like the offense over game plans for the week and doesn't adjust to the hot hand during the game. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know how much of it is actually over game planning. I think it's more specifically, and kind of what Joe's saying is, it feels like when we have a player that has the hot hand, especially in the run game, we get away from that, right? We don't keep getting them the football. And more specifically, talking about Quentin Joyner. I feel like Joyner, maybe not last week against Maryland, he only had a couple touches and only had 6 yards on the day, but against Penn State, right? He has that 75-yard touchdown run. And then he has, the following drive, he has a touchdown catch, right? So he has 2 touches already for 2 touchdowns, and then he only gets 3 more the rest of the entire game. And I've talked about before not taking touches out of Woody's hands to get Quentin more involved, but I would love for Coach Riley, when we have the run game rolling, when we have Quentin Joyner starting to show some flashes in a game, keep feeding him the football. Keep getting him the ball. In the pass game, you can do the same. You can try to get some, design some routes to get some one-on-one matchups, to get some deep shots. It's a little bit more tough throwing the football because the defense can cloud a receiver, right? They can play man-to-man and overshadow a couple guys at that side, play safety over the top. So it's tough, and they can take a receiver out of the game plan. But we have other guys on the outside that can help that. But more specifically to Joe's question, in the run game, if Woody's rolling, keep getting the football. But if you see Quentin have 2 big plays like he did against Penn State, let's not get away from that. So again, I don't think it's over game planning or trying to, force players the football or stick to the game plan strictly. I just feel like Coach Riley at times, or this offense, gets away from the hot hand. And like I said, Quentin Joyner has been that a couple times in previous games. I know he fumbled against Minnesota, but he was still averaging 11 carries per rush, or 11 yards per rush. So I'd love for us this week, if someone's rolling, especially in the run game, keep giving them the football and let them go.
So Manny says, in our 4 losses, we've scored 24 points in the third quarter. What adjustments need to be made? Yeah,
it's frustrating because it felt like early in the year, we were a great second half team, right? We did a great job of coming out and starting fast. We did against Michigan, right? I think we had 12 plays, 75-yard drive. Against Wisconsin, same thing. We came out the second half and had a big drive. We've done a good job. Minnesota, another game, we came out and had a great drive, but it just feels like at times, or recently against Penn State, and I know some penalties hurt us, but against Rutgers as well, that was the interception. We've just kind of fallen flat of keeping that momentum going, and it's different. And the tough part about it is that in the games that we're behind, and this is something I talked about on Trojans Live, the games we're behind, we do a great job of, locking in or getting mad or getting frustrated and coming out and putting together a great drive to start the second half. It feels like when we have the lead, we struggle right now of playing with the lead. And I don't want to take your foot off the gas, right? Or I don't want you as an offense to take your foot off the gas, but it feels like we don't really play confident. We don't play comfortable with the lead right now. It feels like we're playing not to lose at times instead of, and again, it doesn't have to be just throwing bombs all over the field and just taking shot after shot. you can be balanced. You can get the run game going, but you can find explosive plays both through the air and on the ground. But it just feels like right now, the last 2 weeks specifically, in the third quarter or more so the second half, we've slowed down a little bit and we've lost that rhythm that we've created. And that's the frustrating part is we've seen flashes how good this team can be. I just feel like we haven't really put all 4 quarters together and reached our full potential.
And to your point, Chris had a question that included a part that said even while the Trojans were up, the team just seemed so low energy against Maryland. Win or lose, they'll be in the Collie fight Friday, fight on. But you can tell that
you can feel it. And,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not at the game. I mean, obviously you're there, but on the TV copy, it feels like that a little bit. Now, maybe not that opening drive of the second half, but after Miller threw that interception, it really felt like, and I know when you're on the road, that's a momentum-changing play. But, hey, after the pick, fine. They go down and score. We're still up 7, right? And then we go back to being up 14, but it just felt like we weren't putting teams away. We're not putting Maryland away. When we're up against Minnesota, we have a crucial, turnover to where we're not doing what we need to do to put games away. And I understand when you go back and you watch the film against Michigan or you watch the film against Penn State and you understand, okay, these are close football games, right? We did a good job of coming back in some of those. We let Penn State back in it, but they know how to win football games. They've been in that position before. That's a good football team. You understand that there's positives to take away from that game, and there's areas where we're so close to taking that next step. But the ones that are hard to defend or to feel optimistic about are when you play Minnesota or when you play Maryland, when it shouldn't even be a close game in the first place, right? That's a frustrating part for me, and no disrespect to those teams. They outplayed us in those games, right? They were the better team. They deserved the win, but on paper, when you look at the athletes that USC has, when you look at the playmakers that we have, we should win those football games, and we had opportunities to where we showed that we were dominating in those games, and we could have put it out of reach in the second half, and we have just failed to do so. So I think that's where the frustration really comes in. And for me, another thing is we threw the ball 50 times, and we ran it 22 or 24, but one of them was a kneel down, one was a sack. Maryland threw it 51 times and ran it 24, right? So basically even, and you would think, okay, either team was behind, but we had the lead in that football game, and we're throwing it the same amount that Maryland is. It's trying to come back. So my point being is I just feel like when we have the lead in these football games, I'd love for us to lean more on the run game, right? I want it, instead of being 50 throws to 22 runs, let it be 30-30. Let it be around 25-30. Let it be, a lot more balanced, especially when you have the lead. I get when you're behind and you've got to throw the football to catch back up and you want to get back in the football game. I understand that. You're going to have a drive where you throw it 10 and run it 2, right? And you have to go down the field. But when we have the lead, the fact that we're throwing it the same amount as Maryland, but we've had a 2-touchdown lead in the second half is a part for me where it's a little frustrating that I would love for us to stick maybe more to the run game, get Quentin Joyner going, get Woody Marks going, who is averaging 5 yards per carry. Quentin Joyner hasn't had a negative rush this entire season. Let the offensive line build that confidence on the ground and just that's where the frustration comes in a little bit. I just feel like we had so many opportunities to put games away this year. We're just failing to do so.
Louis said, what is with the trend of defensive backs never playing the ball? It seems like they just chase after receivers and wait for them to react, then just throw up their hands and hoping to hit the ball.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, too, and that's a tough spot to play. I think, obviously quarterback's tough, left tackle's tough. It is so tough in college and the NFL at high-level football to be on an island to play man-to-man as a cornerback when you're out there with a very good receiver. But, yeah, I would love for us to be a little bit better of making some plays on the football. But it's tough when you're running stride for stride with a defender. You've got to watch their hips, right? You got to see where they're going. You got to make sure they're not cutting in, cutting out. You may think it's a go ball. You turn your head around, to look for the ball, then they stop, right? And then you run 10 yards past them and they have an easy completion. So there's a lot of things that go into that. But, yeah, where I think we've struggled this year is getting takeaways in the secondary, right? We've struggled to do so. We've got to be able to make some more plays on the football. When the ball's in the air, that's why your defense, you always hear the sideline yelling pass, 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 right? When it's a pass and you hear them yelling ball, ball, ball to let your defensive back know, okay, now I can turn and make a play on the football. That's where communication comes in. But for us this year, we've struggled to do so, and we've given up some big plays because of it, but we've also given up some pass interference because you're not getting your head around. You're doing some of the face guarding. You're doing some of those PI calls to where they want to see you, the ref does, want to see you turn around, make a play on the football, and when you fail to do so, you put yourself in a bad position.
Also, I just want to give a disclaimer. I did tell Louis to say hi to me if he saw me in the stadium. Someone did, but didn't tell me their name. So if I wasn't as excited to see you and that was you, Louis, I do apologize.
Okay.
That was not intentional.
Did you ignore Louis on purpose?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
No, but people, okay.
Just like you bailed on me on the recap episode on Sunday because you were not feeling good?
I still wasn't. No, here's a disclaimer, and this sounds really snobby.
Okay.
Say your name if you say hi to me. People always forget to say their name.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, big time Keely over here.
You probably
so I'm so popular. You got so popular. You know. I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I knew you were gonna do that.
Well, I get it too. And in a stadium, even when you're playing or you're on the field, sometimes people will chirp you anyway, so you never know if it's like a fan or if it's someone from the opposing team or like, should I look or is this some,
Well, opposing fans mess with me too.
Oh, 100%.
And that's why I'm not like the friendliest.
And at least you're not wearing cardinal and gold on the sideline. But if that's what you're supposed to do as an away fan. So yes, Louie, Keely, I promise, and I can vouch for her, she's not going to ignore you if it was you. But again, you can leave a comment in there. Let her know you're frustrated.
So you mentioned something earlier in the podcast, and we actually got 2 questions about it, but I'm going to summarize it with one question.
Okay.
That Daddy Mini asked it, and a listener from Tennessee asked, but he said, long question for Cody incoming. Far be it from me to criticize Lincoln Riley on scheme because he knows more about X's and O's than I will ever know, but it seems this season that he's running a lot of his guard tackle stuff with nothing on the backside to protect it. I've lost count of the amount of times Woody's gotten chopped down by a backside end that we haven't put in conflict. When he got here, he ran tons of combinations off the back of GT that helped protect it. I think of the tunnel and key screens against Stanford to Jordan Addison. I haven't really seen much of that this year. Could this be a regression in his scheme and play calling, or is he seeing something that I'm completely missing?
No, I love that. And that's something I brought up earlier, right? The first thing you do when you have guard tackle pull, because you have to leave a defensive end alone. When you're pulling a tackle from the backside, there's no one that can block that defensive end. The person that's responsible for that is the quarterback, whether that's a run or a throw, right? If he crashes down, he can pull it and read an RPO, throw a slant off of him, right? If it's normally you have 2 slants that side or a single player. I know he's talking about 2. The tunnel screen that we would do to Jordan Addison against Stanford. We did it a couple times, being ready for that guard tackle pull. They've seen it a couple times. Now we're going to throw a tunnel screen off of it where he walked in for a touchdown on that. But yeah, the biggest thing for that, and that's great eyes. That's a valid point. That's something I talked about before, is that's where that next step is, that it's on the quarterback, right? When you have, and against Maryland, that hurt us on one of those drives where we were coming out to where Miller saw that pressure coming off the edge. They had 2 players, I think, coming off the edge. He still gives it to Woody, and he gets tackled for a 4-yard loss, right? And when you're trying to, when you're backed up, when you're trying to get a drive started, going backwards or getting a negative 4-yard rush, getting the crowd back into it is the worst thing that can happen. I'm fine if Miller pulls it. Say they do scrape replace. What I mean by that is if the end crashes down, now the linebacker comes over the top to be responsible for the quarterback for pulling it. Teams do that, but I'd rather Miller pull it, get back to the line of scrimmage, get down instead of having a 4-yard loss and getting your running back hurt or getting your running back hit. And then on top of that, you could have a mesh issue to where you have a fumble now because he's in the backfield so quick. But yeah, when you do guard tackle pull, something that Miller has to do this week, that Rutgers does a good job of bringing pressure off the edge. If you see that end crashing down, if you see an outside backer pressuring off the edge, be ready to pull it, make a play with your feet, even if it's not there, get a yard or 2, or pull it and be ready to throw it off a slant window or off of a quick hitch when they replace or when they pressure. When they pressure, you want to throw into the teeth of the blitz, right? If you see a pressure coming off the edge or an end or an outside backer, pull it and throw a quick slant, or pull it, like I said, get a couple yards and get down. But no, that's a great point. That's something that has to happen. And I promise you, on the sideline with the tablets, that's something that Coach Riley is talking to Miller about, of saying, hey, when you see that guy crashing down, my first touchdown my junior year was because they brought pressure off the edge against Fresno State, brought a defensive end. I didn't do it a whole lot, but I did it when I needed to. If I would have gave it to, I think Rojo was back there, or no, Rojo wasn't there yet. I'm sorry. It was Buck. If I would have given it to Buck Allen, he gets tackled for a 3-yard loss, and now it's 3rd and goal from the 5 instead of 3rd and goal from the 1. But then I pull it, walk in the end zone, right? And I'm not saying he has to do it every single time. There's going to be plays where it's okay, it's a give. But once you do it once or twice, it starts forcing that outside defender to respect that. And that'll slow them down a little bit. They can't just pin their ears back and come after the back. So, yeah, that's something this week Miller has to do. And like I said, Rutgers does a good job of getting pressure on the running back that way. But Miller has to take it upon himself to be that key player to pull it off the defensive end or get the ball out of his hands.
I'm going to combine questions. De La Cruz said, why do so many of Miller Moss's deep throws appear to be underthrown? Is it a matter of technique or nerves? And Trojan Mom said, can you expand on what you said last night on Trojans Live about Miller trying too hard to be perfect and what he can do differently?
Yeah, starting with the first one, I don't know. It's tough because there's times that his mechanics look great and the ball's just coming up short, right? And then you start questioning, okay, is it arm strength? Well, some of these are like 30-yard throws that I've seen him make before. So I don't think it's that category. Or there could be with some of these deeper throws, or the fact that he hasn't done it a whole lot. That could be another thing. But for me, there's just too many times in this game, and this goes back to, being frustrated that it's this close of a game against the Rutgers, against the Minnesota. But specifically this last week, and I talked about it before on this episode, there were times when Deuce had a step or 2 on a defender and Miller underthrows him, right? And some of them you'd be like, okay, Deuce can make a play on that, but it shouldn't be that difficult in the first place. Throw it over the top to where the DB has no chance of getting to the football. Then the one that Charles Ross had an unbelievable route, got by the defender, great burst of speed. If Miller puts it out there, that's a walk-in touchdown, right? He throws it over the top, that's a touchdown, but instead he leaves it 4 or 5 yards short. Now we get a PI off of it, but that's 15 instead of 40. So that's a little frustrating. Then the Kyron Hudson. And even the touchdown to Kyron Hudson was, I'm fine. I know it was a back shoulder, it was a little behind, and he made a play on the football, but he had so much room over the top. Throw that ball in the back pylon. The DB barely missed it, but don't give him a chance to do that if you throw it over the top. So I think a big part of that, too, is him taking some hits this year, right? That will start, and you can say, oh, it's a different game, but when you take hit after hit after hit, especially early in the season, that will rattle you a little bit. And that's anybody. I don't care who you are from top to bottom, but you have to be able to block that out. But, yeah, I'm with you on that. And there are times that we do drop some of those throws. And we've had opportunities where we've had guys over the top or guys that make a big play, and it hurts when we have a drop. So it's not all on Miller. And there's times that guys are open, and he can't step into his throw because he's getting hit. So that's a part of it. But there were times this game, and it was just a little frustrating that he has a clean pocket, and he has no one around him where he can sit there, step into his throw, have great mechanics, and put it down the field. He's just leaving some of those short. And if it's an arm strength thing, it very well could be. Or could it be? And the reason I struggle to say arm strength, though, is because some of them are 30-yard routes. Like it's a quick slot fade that you can make just one step and put it out there. He's just either trying to be too perfect and throw a back shoulder every time, or he's just not done it enough to where he needs to, make it a 3-ball, put it over the top, put some air under it and let the defender or let your receiver run under it. And like I said, I'm fine with an overthrow this week. Just show that you can put it out there and let our guys go make those plays, because those are touchdowns to be had, or at least explosive plays that we're missing that are hurting us in these football games.
Rama said, as a player, how frustrating are these close losses that could have been wins? Is there still motivation among the team to finish the season strong and get to a bowl game?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of motivation. I don't care if you're 0-10 or if you're 10-0, right? There's always motivation, and from the outside looking in, obviously, your expectations and your hopes and your all the positive feelings you felt a couple weeks ago for this football team started to get less and less. And I understand that. That's the part of being a fan, right? If your team's winning, you feel great. If they start losing, it's tough to be optimistic. I totally understand that. But as a player, no matter what your record is, and if you're not going to, then get them off the field. If you're not going to go out there and compete and make the most of your opportunity and go out there and compete for your brothers and do your job and trust the guy next to you and put it all on the line for your teammates and for the Cardinal and gold and for the SC logo that you wear on your jersey, then get off the field. And I don't care who it is, whether it's the top down, the starter, to a walk-on that's getting an opportunity. If you're not going to go out there and give it your all and go 110%, then we don't want you on this football team. And I don't have any question about that with this team. I really feel like we have a great core group of guys that are playing hard. And that's the frustrating part, right? As a fan, you want to yell at the players or yell at the coaching staff, but I promise you, no one cares more than they do. They want to win these football games. The players are putting their bodies on the line to go out there and win these football games. They're working really hard. No one cares more than these players and these coaches, but it's tough as a fan, to see the same things happening over and over and to see these heartbreaking loss after heartbreaking loss and these close games where we have the lead. I mean, we've had the lead in every fourth quarter that we played, and we still have lost, I think, 4 of those 5, right? The one that we did win was LSU. We did a good job of winning that game. But outside of that, Wisconsin, we came back, but we took the lead in, I think, the third quarter. But overall, my point being is it's tough to stay optimistic when you keep having a loss that feels like it's the same story every week. But I promise you the guys in the locker room don't feel that. They're going to continue to learn from the tape. They're going to watch that. And as a player, it hurts more that way. I mean, you never want to get blown out, right? You don't want to go out there and lose by 3 scores or 4 scores. But it's tough when you're that close. And that's what Coach Riley means. Obviously, he's not specifically saying there's one play or 2 plays that change the outcome of the game. But when it's that close, there are 1 plays, whether it's the first quarter or the fourth quarter, that you look back on that if I would have just made that for everyone on the field or multiple guys on the field, would the outcome be different? Now, if it's a 14 or 21-point game or even a 28-point game, does that really matter? No, you can give up some of those. But when it's a close game and it comes down to the very end, you look back on and what keeps you up at night is you making those plays. So that's something we have to learn from and get fixed going into this week.
Roger from Newport wanted to know, do you think Coach Riley should get back to the quarterback's room or have a bigger influence there?
I don't know. It's tough. I talked to Coach Heward early in the season, and I love his take on the quarterback position and the way he spoke about it. And I interviewed him on the Trojan Tailgate show, I think week 1 or week 2 of this season. So I think he's doing a great job there, obviously. And it's tough to tell, too, how much of it is not executing the play or getting in the right play at the right time, or a quarterback coach telling you the right thing, right? There's so many things when it comes to quarterback play from the head coach, from the play caller, from the position coach that, to really pinpoint when he's not playing well or if there's a missed play in a game or a missed throw or a missed opportunity, how much of it, is on the quarterback, how much of it is on the play caller. So it's tough to fully say. I do believe, though, that in the meeting room, I guarantee you Coach Riley spends the majority of his time in the quarterback room because he's the play caller. Now, he may walk around early on in the season and be a part of defensive staff meetings and be a part of or defensive position meetings or be a part of defensive team meetings or unit meetings. But now that we're already this far in the year and he understands how Coach Lynn is and how Coach Henderson and Matt Ince and all of them coach, I really feel like he's probably a lot more involved in the court. That's how Coach Sark was, right? He was a head coach. He was the play caller, but he also spent a ton of time in our position meetings. He would come into the quarterback room and he would, like I said, spend 90% of his time in there unless he had to go do something else. So, I mean, it's tough to really pinpoint if that would help anything or if Coach Riley fully took back over as quarterback coach, if that would change anything, because I guarantee you he already has a big influence on those meetings and how Miller and how Coach Eure, talk in those position groups. But yeah, overall, it's tough to say, and it's tough to pinpoint when you have some mistakes who's really on.
Chadster has a question about recruiting, but I want to just preface that we can't talk specifically about recruiting because we're affiliated with the university, and if we do, it will be a violation, and we do not want to do that.
Yes.
But he said, does a year like this one have a negative impact on recruiting?
I mean, like you said, without getting specifics, from the outside looking in, it hasn't. I mean, USC is doing a great job on the recruiting trail, but, I mean, it's just you never know because in this era of college football, especially in high school or transfer portal players, verbal commitments to me are tough to fully buy into, right? Because you never know who's going to make a late charge. You never know what NIL deal is going to come out of nowhere. You never know, we've seen it before. So it's tough to say, but obviously winning football games helps you as a recruiter, showing that your team's going in the right direction, showing a great atmosphere. That's on the fans as well. And I know you want to have a great product on the field and have a winning football team to support. I get that. But at the end of the day, there's other stuff than just that game, right? There's recruits that come to the Coliseum that want to see it loud. There's recruits that come to practice, that come to tailgating, the Trojan walk. They get to see the atmosphere of USC football. So there's so many different parts to it. But I say all that to say the biggest part is obviously you want to be a part of a winning program. You want to play, at a high level. You want to be on TV on those big noon kickoffs, on those college game day games. You want to play in the playoff. You want to play for a national championship. That's what recruits want, the very high-end recruits. That's what they want to do, right? They want to play in those big-time games, and it helps you get to the next level. It helps you get that exposure, helps you win Heisman trophies, do all those things that you dream of as a high school player. So, yes, winning is important, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff outside of it, especially the culture, and we never see how Coach Riley talks to the recruits. We never see how the position coaches talk to these recruits. So there's so many other factors to it, but if you really want to make a dominant impact in recruiting, in my opinion, one of the most important things is winning football games and having a good product on Saturdays.
Yeah, and I covered recruiting in my last job, and it was interesting to see how just across the nation, sometimes the record actually didn't matter as much. It was selling the recruit on, here's how you can change things around. We need you to do X, Y, and Z. Of course, that's a pitch, but...
No, it is. I just flashed back to when, if SC lost the game when I was recruited there or when I was committed, Coach O called me. Like, buddy, we wish you were there Saturday, and obviously, they had Barkley, and there's guys out there playing well, and they're doing a good job. Or even if they win, a coach calling you. But yes, that was also that's a good point. That was a selling point of, we could have used you Saturday. And as a high school kid, you're like, I would have started, I guess, as a high school senior. Now, is that true? No, but yeah, there's a lot of different tactics to recruiting. But yeah, like I said, I don't. Is the schedule everything, or is your record everything? No, but I do think it's a very important factor. Because players at high school dream of playing for a national championship and playing on those big stages.
Yeah, overall direction of the program.
Yeah, there you go. That's the best way to say it, 100%.
USC 87 said, how does Coach Riley right this ship?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of layers to that question, and it's tough to answer and give a full breakdown of that. But the easiest one that I'll say, and the most important, is just winning on Friday, right? To get back on track, to right the ship, to get that bad taste out of your mouth, to turn the page, all the sayings that you want to say. The best way to block all that out, to ignore all the outside noise and put it all behind you is win the next game. You can't get back into a rhythm. You can't get the momentum back on your side until you get that win back under your belt. And I know we've lost 3 in a row, and it felt like that next game's the opportunity. No, this one is. It's tough, when you start getting in a losing streak to turn it around, right? Because you lose a little bit of that confidence and momentum starts going the opposite way, but you have to block all that out, like I said, and go out there and win on Friday, and then let the rest of it take care of itself, right? But again, the thing that you can control is how you practice this week, how you prepare this week, and how you play on Friday, and the product that you put on the field.
I'm going to finish the episode with 2 statements of sorts. First one is from Trudy, who said, we're listening with heavy hearts. It's been a deflating season so far. I feel you, Trudy.
Feel you.
And then a listener from Anaheim texted us and said, nothing but love for this podcast. Thank you guys for all the late night pods and all the film review you guys have to do just to keep us informed and entertained. Fight on forever, which... it's nice to hear, Cody, just because, it is a grind, especially on a short week. It's we appreciate everyone who listens, even in this part of the season.
Yeah, no, I mean, we obviously want to always give you guys a good product, no matter what the record is. And I love USC football. I know Keely does too. It doesn't matter if we were 0-12 this season. We are still going to do a preview, and we'll do a recap episode every single week unless someone to my right eats some gluten on accident or on purpose because they wanted to skip the episode and not see me on Sunday. But anyways.
Trust me, I would not want to do that.
But I will say, though, in all seriousness, we really do appreciate all the listeners. We understand. We see the comments. We get it. We see some of the views. I understand that you want to be around a program that's winning, right? You want to continue to watch a show and support a team that's winning, and we see it. We understand that, and I promise you the players understand that too. Now, they're not paying attention to the Victory Podcast views or the Trojan Tailgate views, but I get it. As a fan, when things aren't going well, when it feels like things aren't getting corrected, you step away a little bit. You take a step back. It's tough to support a team when they're not winning. I've been a part of teams that win a lot of games. I've been a part of teams that struggle to win games, right? Both in college and the NFL. And I get that. So at the end of the day, I say all that to say we're never going to change. So I promise you that we're going to continue to hopefully give you guys good content for as long as we can, as long as they'll allow us. But yeah, sometimes it's tough too for us. I mean, there's times Keely texts me and says, do we have to do this one? And I say, please don't make us. And we feel it too. We're frustrated as fans at times too, especially after some of those close losses. It's so emotionally and mentally draining.
It's draining.
Especially when you're traveling with a team having to fly back and it's so frustrating from the outside looking in that it feels like as a fan or a former player that you felt like you played in that game because of how much you put into it throughout an entire season. College football is a long year. There's a lot of highs, there's a lot of lows, but I promise you we're never going to change. We're going to continue, like I said, hopefully bring you guys good content, but that's great to hear. Glad you guys enjoyed it. For those of you that stick with us, we love you guys.
Yeah.
Are we doing score prediction or are you ducking again this week?
I prefer protest. I don't know who I'm protesting. I think I'm protesting you.
You just giving up on score predictions?
I don't want to do one.
Okay, well, I'll wrap it up with my score prediction.
I don't know why.
And I'm confidently, I have been wrong, obviously, the last 3 weeks, but I'm confident in this one. I'm going to say 42-14 USC at home. We get back on track. Quentin Joyner gets 2 touchdowns this game. I think he gets things rolling. Woody Marks goes over 100 all-purpose yards. I feel like Miller Moss is going to get back on track. The defense is going to play well. A couple takeaways on that side of the ball. I don't know why. I'm feeling optimistic. Obviously, after 3 games that you lose in heartbreaking fashion, you feel like you would be down a little bit. But I feel great about this week. I've got a good feeling. Short week. Let's get back on track. Love you guys. Fight on. Thanks for listening. Hopefully Sunday, if you don't duck me again and bail on me.
The gluten gods.
Yeah. Okay. Either way, we'll see you guys on Sunday, hopefully with a good positive.
So much trash. I didn't duck you.
Well, we'll see about it. We'll see Sunday. I'm just kidding. No, it's all fun and games here. But yeah, no, we'll see you guys Sunday, hopefully with a positive definition of a victory podcast recap episode.
A victory pod.
There we go.
How about that? Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up for this week's preview episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.